Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us here today and for helping to launch the new books out from Omnidawn Publishing, which is always a cause for celebration. Today, we welcome new books by Robin Caton, Cyrus Console, Brody Parrish Craig, Ruth Ellen Kocher, David Koehn, Ian Lockaby, and Maw Shein Win. It is truly an abundance of wealth that we have gathered here today, and I ask you to please show them some love in the chat and also to purchase all of their books and extra copies of their books for all of your friends. My name's Evan Karp. I'm the director of Quiet Lightning, a literary nonprofit based in San Francisco since 2009. I'm very happy to host this event today and want to start by thanking you each for being here and for supporting this series, as well as local nonprofit press and Bay Area treasure Omnidawn Publishing. As we begin the new year, I know we're all facing many challenges, and it's easy to be overwhelmed and to want to curl inward. I hope today's readings provide you with some comfort, some recentering, whatever it is that you need as we look forward into the second full week of 2025. If you do value the work that you hear today, there's nothing you can do that's more supportive than to buy the books. It helps both Omnidawn and the authors directly and makes it possible for both the authors and the press to continue. In that spirit, I would like to give a shout out to Omnidawn's co-founder and publisher, Rusty Morrison, who's unable to join us today due to her ongoing recovery from being hit by a car recently while walking her dog. For those of you who are able and would like to support Rusty's recovery, I'll drop that link into the chat shortly. I do believe that she is here with us watching. Just a brief overview of how today's event will go, and then we'll get started. Each author will read from their work. I'll be dropping their bios into the chat along with links to their books so you can find out more information. There are also live links just beneath the video if you scroll down a bit. Each author will read for up to 10 minutes and will go without a break. I'll paste the order in the chat, but it will be Robin, Cyrus, Maw, Ruth Ellen, David, and Ian. I'm sorry to report that Brody Parrish Craig is under the weather and unable to join us today. Please show the authors some love in the chat. Help me welcome them all here. I'll be over in just a minute if anybody's having any technical issues at all to do my best to help. Robin, Cyrus, Maw, Ruth, David, Ian, welcome and congratulations on your new books. Robin, I will turn it over to you. Welcome, everybody.
Thanks so much, Evan, and Quiet Lightning for sponsoring this event. It's very, very special to be here. Thank you, Rusty, wherever you are. I can't see you, but I love you, dear, and what a challenging few months you've had. Thank you, Laura, and the whole Omnidawn team for all the work you put into making our books happen and happen so beautifully. I'm going to be reading today from this book called Omitting All That Is Usually Said. And I want to thank also my teacher and dear friend, the artist Afsana Michaels, who allowed me to use the image from her beautiful painting, which is called Nothing to Hold On To. And I thought when I saw it and when I heard the title especially, that was exactly right for the book that I've written, because there's not much to hold on to in our world. I was inspired to write this book after reading a beautiful book called Catching the Light, the Entwined History of Light and Mind, and thinking quite a bit about language and relationships, light and darkness, prose and poetry, artistic imagery, and the written word, and all of that has crept its way into the book. There is a rewrite that I've done of a novel called Beauty and Sadness by the Japanese novelist Yasunari Kawabata, which runs its way through this book, as well as poetry, as well as imagery as well. And today I'm going to go back and forth a little bit between the prose piece and the poetry. I think you'll know when I'm in one or the other. If you hear the name Robert, you'll know I'm in the prose, and the poetry is I think going to be very obvious as well. So I'll start starting with one of the one of the poems, the first poem in the book. He tried the first time brief, a few things in the dawn of the world present at those distant locations. Look, my dear, you were his sky. It was not a blind bordering. Even art became a unique light signature, feathery detail, a world of promise for the bird that it contained. 12 windows, grimed with dirt, ran along the length of the other side of the car of the Amtrak Express. Robert noticed that the one on the far end was open. He could not stop staring at it. The windows on his side of the car were sealed shut. He was one of only a few passengers in the car. Leaning against the wall, his briefcase on his lap, he watched the open window. It would not keep to a consistent pattern. Sometimes it slid down slowly. Sometimes it jiggled and slid more quickly. Sometimes it seemed to stop, take a breath, and remain where it was. To watch that window sliding toward its ultimate state, complete openness, alarmed him. He began thinking about the past. Why do I feel this naive consciousness break, splinter into presence, while we talk yet again of whitish green blossoms, wind, the new dead above the silvery branches staked through the heart with numbness? We see neither tree nor water. We who have touched the roughness, a trace of the artist's complex breeze, frightened in the cold blood of green familiar country and in such common colors, turn the plum yellow while we speak of the uncaring grass touched by silken light. Do not believe the first cold objects, the murderous threads of colored glass. Such things and such atoms tell what has happened, but do not believe it. Physics may say an evening shower passed, but the waves, the blackness, hover as hill overhead. We who speak have the same dark thought. We see, we hear, willing to be ruined. The quivering world creaks on, depending on us. It was the 5th of April. Robert was going to New York for a meeting. For how many years had he been making these trips? When did the Amtrak Express from Philadelphia to New York begin? Probably he'd gone at least 6 times a year ever since, perhaps more. How often had he watched the same houses, trees, and cars outside the train windows, or past midnight after a long meeting and the inevitable dinner that followed, caught a glimpse on the way home of a shimmering moon. During these trips, which he always made without his wife, the boundary between city and suburb, county and state soon disappeared. Borders were crossed before he could see the signs that marked them. The speed with which they traveled ensured that the scenery blurred, the space between stations a continuous flow that merged with the flow of time. It is also a place of bending, green, violet, the morning you inhabit, the use of words, light named before you were living, an arrangement of landscape after you observe, and then perhaps to confuse. Slowly move your head. Tree, crying, manifests rain, a special conjunction of non-gray and white. Houses flew by in a blur outside the windows. Far above the roofs, heavy gray clouds darkened the sky, seemingly about to empty rain over the earth. But as the train went on, the sky cleared. Weak sunlight slanting in the windows reached Robert's side of the car. As they passed an industrial park, he could see the ground was dotted with puddles. On the other side, a few spindly birch trees were just beginning to bud. And nevertheless, it isn't so, the Duchess says. Time and the ghosts and the luminous hearts of stone, the familiar echo, they are strange spirit. Centuries of divine reeds swim alongside the Egyptian eye, suddenly breaking in for philosophy and laughter. The gods saw fit to remove themselves. I do not think I will mind. I can get along well without cold stars, my treeward boat marked beyond the shore. The principle of form permits the existence of things distinct, the folly of love, this bread, this bed, and I shall sleep tonight. After the outskirts of Philadelphia came the towns and roads of New Jersey. At the journey's end, there was a long, dark tunnel under the Hudson into New York. There were so many trains entering and leaving Penn Station at once that the screech of brakes, the clanging of rails, the recorded voices announcing arrivals and departures mingled into a single roar that left little room for the small, familiar sound of Robert's own thoughts. It is not you who chooses to awaken. Light is a gaze, formless, without object. Ocean merging with empty beach, light, brightness, breaks down time in which redemption, perishing in golden fire, alters ordinary sweetness. It is not elemental, this sudden field of notice. The self is seen, seized, a release of light and human opposition that celebrates itself through passion. That great cosmic being known as night sky enchains its throne to Eros, glimpsed, light as dawn, the sun in clay. Angels, planets, stars never dream. And you are a painting altered by sound. The ancient eyeless sun gods donned simple vestments to leave this life, edging along their crimson halls from room to smaller room. It is not you who chooses. Light is not the absence of your name. And that's all. Thank you very much. I look forward to the next readers.
Thank you, Robin. That was lovely. Thanks for starting us off. Y'all show some love for Robin in the chat. And next up, we have Cyrus Console. Keep it flowing. Cyrus, to you.
Thank you, Evan. I'm going to read the title poem from my book, which is called The Wayfarer. The Wayfarer. I was the father of two young children when I started plans for a long walk that became shelter in my mind, where I arranged my things or chose among unlimited potential routes, land and sky parting like content in a trance I could move west through. I had been made so any given morning brought regret I should be unable to reverse progress out of sleep, though both hands slept, fastened around the black coffee that made me want to put it all into writing, but why? You know the taste. The thought of sleeping under bridges and drinking coffee there appealed to me. Autumn would have been perfect. I had a hat with a brim, sandals that lasted forever, a knife, and a steel bottle I kept near the intercom, that relayed snores. The brain had certain templates representing less experience than the extinction of all alternative lines of descent, all futures not threading beige paths through wood and meadow, not red fruit punctuating foliage, not glittering sound of cool water, in which one beauty secret lay, though it required talent sometimes to make sensible, weird visual might of genitals, outlines of predators and vermin, one kindred face upturned amid rent limbs and carnage, thunderhead beneath whose mass crickets and owls gave out hesitant noise. For a long time I whispered, after my son, as I covered him, asked what a word was, wanting to try to explain the part of the secret that held there can be no first sight of such things. But my heart said only, time to buy gold. During his first ice cream headache, a look of understanding came over him. I thought, now one day maybe he can conceive a phrase like justice system in the referral of pain, but it never kept me from working. The music I liked best was muted, so you could think. At summer's end, big white mushrooms rose above the living mesh they were fruiting bodies of, and I had turned 39 before I realized their names did not belong here in the template of night. Is my water bottle a word? Is my pillow a word? One morning we passed under 13 feet of chain sewn into the hem of a hanging flag on our way to meet a cartoon character who claimed to see the same stars we could. And in the blue dark of Union Planetarium, he called us friends and led us in a real song. And I will read one more poem that's called Pippi Longstocking. And I'll end with that. Pippi Longstocking. It happened sometimes you asked me to play with you or differentiate between black birds or help find three things wrong. And I said, no, grackles sing like old springs or a clock falling downstairs. I take it back, and said nothing for a mile and a half. The song more resembles a characteristic noise that tin makes, the element when it is bent. A bar of tin will cry until it breaks. A child might grow unnaturally strong, wandering alone among the deceased family's possessions in its house. Mr. Nilsson, the monkey, is represented as clutching a tin cup with both hands. The porch where it is contented to remain shelters a horse with no name. When I was a child, it was said such and such were the only non-human animals accustomed to grief or mourning. Pippi is about your age, and like her, if ever you should need something, I speak here purely of commodities, there is a mass of white money understood as persistent in the solid phase, in a suitcase on top of the wardrobe to which you may repair indefinitely. My legacy to you in the bubble economy, together with the poems I want you to consider as most significant among three hobbies I pursued in a kingdom whose only valuable sectors work diminished and degraded utterly, and where you got free lunch at school. They threaten to stabilize in the mode of lament I have been all your life overcoming, and which perhaps needs no explaining. The sea chest in the attic moonbeam discloses a sword and 3 pistols and the nightshirt I wore in life, which might be taken in for you. You are 7, but children's literature at present can no longer accommodate two small brothers hemmed in by flames in the window of a high triangular wall. The quip, children should never handle firearms, as you present Tommy and Annika with revolvers. Look, the illustrator renders Nilsson as ink, with paper white eyes, not at all as it is done. The shower of sparks over the groaning crowd, the tramps wink at each other, then enter at nightfall through an unlocked kitchen door. I believe there is a reason for this, though whether we have told ourselves a kind of lie or whether we imagine it all so clearly as the temporary wound cavity lofted by the slug traversing a schoolboy's belly, that it no longer moves us to laughter, I can't say. Much that Pippi's world, restricted to caricature, has since crossed the valley into our own. Nilsson's water cup he drains and afterward places atop his head like a cap or crown. Unbraided for the coffee party, red hair encircles her visage like a mane. A little radiation is unavoidable, she says. Thankfully, the disaster meant everyone was already under orders to stay home by the time wildfires in the zone of alienation and in the state radioecological reserve unfurled luminous soot over Europe. I believe everything happens for a reason. I do it principally to teach you to do it. But in Japan, there is a vault of ice they need to keep cool for 3,000 centuries if humankind is to go on providing meals for my father, the cannibal king. Though you may never exceed what you did without apparent effort as a child of 6, if you keep at it, you will be a real artist. Say to yourself, money is a gas whose pressure is the average velocity of coins, and it suffices to rigidify structures of increasing complexity and scale. Say you regarded the Settergren family as real, sister trying on surnames in a fine hand, brother clasping and unclasping his birthday knife, mother wiping clean the glass eyes almost as dark as the circle of very black paint marking father's nose as a tin pipe proper to the emotionally distant man. I believed there was a reason for this. And then this annoying thing had to happen, that he was blown into the ocean, and Pippi came into the house to begin waiting for him to return, which was a frame of mind that offered no way out, but which instructs a concept of bad faith, evoking pity rather than contempt. It happened sometimes you asked me to play with you, and I said no, but this will be the last time. And these are the black shoes, precisely twice the length of her feet, which her father bought her in Santiago, so that you would have something to grow into. That's the end of the poem. Thank you.
Thank you, Cyrus. That was wonderful. Y'all show some love for Cyrus in the chat. And next up, we have my friend and collaborator, Maw Shein Win. Maw, turn it over to you.
Right, great. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Quiet Lightning. And it's such a pleasure to be reading today with my Omnidawn pressmates. Thank you, Rusty and Laura. I know you're watching. Thank you for all that you do for bringing beautiful Omnidawn books into the world. This is the first poem in Percussing the Thinking Jar. Thought log. Swinging on an old rope from the edge of a cliff. A lit up room, a giant X covered in sequins. Gone lawns, fan crowns, drone town. An orange ceramic swallow from Portugal. My love's laughter from the study. Reimagine cures. Amber nimbus, ochre hawks, spring shambles. I believe in the healing power of crystals. They thought my hair had turned white due to pandemic stress. My sinuses are being occupied. I feel lonely, and then I don't. I eat another bowl of kitchery, the bits of ginger. Sorry fabric, mild steel, jade traps. What are we in for? The somatic therapist leads us on a guided visualization through a sacred grove. I swim in a field of pathogens. Log thought. Read the vulnerability clause. Faint in the trenches. Find cheap healers online. I see a bluebird with teeth. I can't find my veins. My sister, an intimate contortionist. Interrogate, vault. Catalog. Check work email. Read about flooding in Puerto Rico. Put lotion on dry legs. Spectrovite vitamin bottles on dining room table. Try to remember next PT appointment. Listen to bird songs on YouTube. Makes me think of the bird on yesterday's walk, my friend trying to ID with an app on her phone. The announcement by Taco Bell that their guacamole would not suffer from the impact of Mexico's dearth of avocados. Leg stretches. Where should I donate my clothes? Picture my mother alone in bed at the monastery, the abbess in her kuti, sending out newsletters on compassion. Soldiers gunned down village in Myanmar. Text a client 2 close-up photos of the scars on my abdomen, which I meant to send to my doctor at Kaiser. A thin trail of blood in one, the other shaped like a star, my navel exposed, my hand holding up my right breast. And this poem is for my dear friend Annabelle. Observation log. Warmed a nest in my balmy palm, placed it back in its ginkgo tree, turned aside and took rest for a while. And this is the last poem in the book, and it's entitled Entries. Hello, Nightlight. Hello, Schemer. I feel a shift under the chair. I drape, then dollop. I restore my surface with blue and green stitches. Entry, apple core, rust towel, carving spoons, wolf pouch, cap racks. I smell trouble born. I am lichen, I darn, then damage, sleep on a pixel quilt, quit my job before it begins. Entry, sugar scrub, joy gush, dorsal spin, popper lock, snow lake. I go salmon shopping. When I was 6, I wandered into a virtual valley. I dropped, then dripped. Near the flood on the asphalt, I saw liquid tricks. Entry, dizzy blister, sunny buckets, timber knocks. Uncle's teeth, blaze swells. I keep my distance from the cult. I have a hidden life. I disco, then distill. Blankets are dresses these days. I lick my palms dry. Entry, vortex drift, amber chamber, water rabbit, ox feathers, chatterhead. I am introspective paradox, a jade swan. I dapple, then dipstick. Watch the royals flash their pretty forks. I am my own clone for now. Goodbye, trumpet of death. Goodbye, softy. Entry, chanted robes, dolphin beaver, vested beasts, vesper flux, pressure switch. I close my eyes and tap the lid. And this is called Sensation Log. When you see it disappear, everything is phenomena. Insect decline. No matter how pleasant things are, they do not last. Forever, no matter how sad or painful it is. Can hear my mother breathing. Doesn't last forever. If it continues, it will be difficult for us to live our entire life. We stayed in the comedy house, knowing it will come to an end. Someday we live in hope of the next. If it is clearly understood, jars of water from a caregiver, rather than vaguely aware there is no more suffering. Only when deeply rooted, ignorance is clearly ignored, a missing account. Will delusion cease to arise because its roots are gone? And my final poem is entitled Observation Log. We live beneath small pounding feet. Think we're alone, but maybe we're dancing. I find a pearl and leave it on your doorstep. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Oh, thank you, Maw. It's lovely to hear you read always. Y'all show some love for Maw in the chat, and make sure that you get Percussing the Thinking Jar. Next up, Ruth Ellen Kocher. Y'all show some love for Ruth.
Hey, everybody. I'm reading today from Archon After. And the notion for this book, as it became a book, really came after I was teaching Derrida's Archive Fever and reading about the archive as an event and the Archon as the keeper of the archive. And I was going through a tumultuous time when I decided to edit my memories and decide which I was going to keep and which I was going to let go of. So I'll start here. The book is also poems written in a chronological order, but they are presented backwards in the book, as archives often are. You are never baneful. You nail grief to the wall. You wrap silence in lemon rind and linen, then bury it in a moon's light. You're a collective squall, blood-buckled, a vision, a dream of a pebble, good luck or bad luck. You wake craggy in the brain fog of near birth, flounder in lace confines. Puberty heathers the fields with ghosts of the soon-to-be dead. Woe always makes its way. The truck will hit us, you tell your mother, and then she knows, you know. There is lion's mane where the bark slopes beneath a collar of moss, a ceiling of red sky, another moon in Leo. Hear me. Fold the living earth into a congruent longing. Reason with dark. Plead as poets plead. Hear us among the fleshy hierarchies. In the summer after, you knowingly hex every couple you see embrace. You smite the air that keeps them, river their laughter into subway tunnels until they are reduced to screech and break. You name them loss and never, incant their brindled end. She will never love you. The beginning is always a lie. A bed can't muscle the night into your halo. When you read the words of a reclusive poet, starkly casting her boozy lyric, preening, you falter. I hate sex, the man's mouth covering my mouth, the man's paralyzing body. You can't peril her dismissal, can't fling her luck into the street. The trains balance the serendipity of your name against her future plotted. You allow each body to believe it's done something special, day in, out. Emancipate them to the sidewalk where the sun remains spellbound as they waver behind, virulent, lovey-dovey. They never find the ocean. They can't ever eat enough. After a night of sleep shopping, you wake to 2 grocery bags on the porch, a dozen individually packaged pieces of cake, a half sheet of tres leches, 4 scones. Need isn't hearsay. You carry them to the trash. Need isn't a tightrope of hunger strung between your sea and your moonlight. It's a little shame unleashed in your throat. It's a little empty. It's an imprint of failed harvest or peril, as in the dove won't look away. Somehow, you become a swarm webbed across a plane of singular impulse, eat or perish or tunnel or plead. One summer, you eat only carrots and jello. You inward your want until you're sated with loss. You unmake yourself, pound after bleary pound, spine pressed against the new world, stomach snailed against spine, edgewise and magic, not fat or thin or fallow. You're talking to a man who lives in the mountains. Somewhere past the gray, misted foothills beyond your window, snow-capped in April, the sound of his breath carried despite warm notes falling. You are beautiful. You wince under the weight, a little lie ending in ripple of flash. Teeth that banister the cliff edge of tongue, a reconciliation to rage. He careens too close, imagines you too sweet. Today, you search online for the ugliest animals in the world. There's a tegu, which looks like a dragon, scaled black and lichen green, not handsome, but handsome. The therapist you insist be black and male, who says, cut yourself a break. Not ugly, nor is the hyena's gnarl bent towards some carcass, not the marabou stork's Easter egg head mottled violet against red, feminine, intimate as vultures. Before she dies, your mother tells you no one ever called her beautiful, and you didn't say so then, but should have, because now the horseshoe bat is modest and vellum. The warthog's arched mouth is rigid as a clavicle. You are beautiful means you hate that man that lives on a mountain who makes a narrative of you. You are beautiful, naked mole rat, little star-nosed mole. The most beautiful of the ugly have the smallest eyes. The parasite is blind to ruin. And last one. Regret is a bird beginning, the wind that takes its nest, the fall that ends its life. When the bird passes, a slow and unfulfilled birth might be restless, unbecoming. A carcass means unconsummated living. You discover a bird, a riddle of feathers, wilting bone, flanking the gravel, a memory rehearsed, restless as years. In July, you refuse to go home, steal 2 books from the library, the photographs of Henri Cartier-Bresson and Balzac's droll stories, neither of which you ever read, so full of peace and ruin. Many years later, you buy replacements you never send, wilt, guilt, transmuted, precious death, this veil intending forgiveness. Sun moves your shadow forward, a dark ray outlined divine. The bird is a message of regret. The bird is a piece that detonates your timid doom, kindles eventual fire in the nest of your chest. Peonies seem less conspiring, more bright. A hawk feathers the morning. Mist hovers invisible. Mountains, sky, plenitude. Regret, a green apple, a runway of stone, a wink toward the vulture, festering, coming loam. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. That was very moving reading. Y'all show some love for Ruth in the chat. And next up, we have David Koehn. Keep the love flowing for David.
My gratitudes are similar to everyone's gratitudes. Grateful for these folks that are reading with me today. Grateful for Rusty and Laura at Omnidawn. Grateful to my lifelong collaborators, Rebecca and Scott and many of my beloveds. I'll be reading from Sir today, and I'll try and read a short poem, and then a long poem, and then maybe one more poem. This first poem is page 74 of, it's titled 74, but it's from page 74 of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's book, Sign of the Four, a book that I collaboratively erased with Rebecca Rosinski. And I think it's a signal piece that represents what happens throughout Sir. Naked views between cottonwoods. This next poem is called On the Drive to School, a Coyote Crossed the Road Again. Strawberries contain as much water as watermelon. The well-ordered fields keep April open until May, the lapse reminding the hand of a grandmother pouring heavy cream into a glass bowl. The whisk next to the tumbler of whiskey. At the time, who knew Manhattan was a place? A beheaded strawberry wobbles off the edge of the wooden cutting board. Does understanding a reasonable life require a criminal mind? Her Tinder date tried to feed her right hand to the kitchen's garbage disposal. So I was an upgrade. When questions and the lilacs conversation, no zookeeper's daughter will defend the observations. On the drive to school, the conversation turns to Zeno's paradox and degrades into fascinations of algebra. If John leaves New York at 9 a.m., traveling 60 miles an hour, and Amanda leaves Pittsburgh at 10 a.m., traveling 80 miles an hour, 371 miles according to Google Maps, where? How can you tell? Can you change the voice in your head? Will they meet? Who asked? Have you tried incomplete sentences? The voice in your head is not your voice. A body contains more bacterial cells than human cells. Turtles swim in the legs of the water table, crawdads in the joints, salmon in the dowels, stripers in the grain. No departure obscures daydreams with schoolhouse red better than the passenger you left behind, feet dangling out the window, 'cause I'm the doo-hop scotcher, like the stoop kids riff in Padiddle. Hours later, the green-leafed tops still green the air with dirt's glib afterthoughts, the back of a throat's reflex to the spoiled fruit's endlessness denies the self-denying owners of uncoded codes. The wig of the body hides the joy when we don't disguise decadence or confuse depravity with pleasure. The next hidden bias, anything more than hues. On the drive to school, a coyote crossed the road again. Bay said, again? This means at certain angles, we can't be sure about love. A boy drowning in his own cigarette smoke in an apartment with the pull down as a front door. A lover has replaced the stars with her own wishes for what others want to steal. Now remains apart from then. The dream? To want what others want to have. The sun, full of tomatoes, over-ripens in the neighbor's garden. In the seventh row of the third field, they meet. Their sons notice each other and exchange a nod. Yes, them. Like Danny says in Gates of Heaven, a broken heart is something that everyone should experience. But let's not talking about that. My kiss on Bay's forehead, like an early summer strawberry, reddish, bittersweet, and 90% water. And maybe one more. Like frost on the wings of a last autumn monarch, as a comet, like a disco ball, like a moth drawn to a lighthouse's deception, like a moon behind clouds howling at oblivion, like a mirage, as laughter, as threads of moonlight woven into the most pleasant of nightmares, like the piers piling just below the surface of low tide, like consequences drifting in a sea of icebergs, like a meadow, like a peacock in Central Park, like a surfer in Stormbreak, as a firecracker exploding in super slow-mo, like a blank wall emerging from the mural. Hit.
Thank you, David. Always lovely to hear you read. Um, Proud to have published some of David's work in Quiet Lightning. Thank you, David. And y'all show some love for David in the chat, please, and keep it going. We have our final reader is Ian Lockaby. Keep it going for Ian.
Thanks so much, Evan. Thanks for organizing this and hosting it. Really appreciate it. I feel, yeah, so lucky to be here and just want to echo the gratitude and appreciation for Laura and Rusty and everyone at Omnidawn. I also really want to thank Ruth Ellen, who selected my chapbook for the chapbook contest, and yeah, well, I'm here. So yeah, I feel so lucky to be an Omnidawn poet. It's like it's a dream come true. So thank y'all so much. I'm gonna read from Defensible Space, If a Crow. Just gonna sort of skip through it. It's sort of like a long sequence in a way. So if a crow, then a black ice cube pressed against the grain of the sun, while the afternoon mugs drop pattering spoils of a milked black cough in the overgrown carpets lay a caffeinated belly bitter against the sleep, against the damn bright slipping away. If a crow remembers you, by what? Something growly in the vanilla leaf. Don't dawdle now, it's plenty late. A way to tell. You're learning a lot of sad, useful things upon the leaves of this awful summer. This book is great, how it can make you hear different, layers of it amplified in the stacked noise of the striated river. At different times, you've grown and used different times. You've learned to keep time with each of them, stacked and riveted to your ribcage now. And every time you stand, I try to stay still, to be located inside of the ways I hear. At the upper edges of the sages there become something less sage than a turbid herbal air. Under our hands, on the tablecloth, the mountain is running towards the city. In the air above it is little attention to these maps. Cirque, medial moraines, andesite, the cold lavas. Defensible space 1. Maybe I will detox like the forest. Maybe I will detox like the dead. Even breathing that smoke now, how will it ever rid me of itself? The smoke off the crow, the smoke off the crow that tells of that fire in the forest, the burning lung the charred birds were breathed from, the must of broiled fur resins trapped in the embering feather down of their young. A picnic basket full of the names you've had for the herbs in your food, bad, good, uncontrollably laughing with a mouthful, a blackberry vine growing up through the wicker bottom of everything. Songbirds mysteriously dying. Inside of this life is another life I cannot claim. The cicada's hum distracts the intelligence of dogs. Cicadas hum and mysteriously kill songbirds. A panic takes in the internet, birding groups arguing over whether to offer the birds water. Throw it in the trees instead, they say. Outside of one's reason is another life. If a crow, a manic feather copulated with, when the weather turns black feathers, cherry juice seeping from the living ground under the weight of every step away through autumn. Once a whale ate a crow. It was the meeting of the loud, dark sky and the quiet, many cathedrals of the sea. The whale belly is my belly, is our belly, is the quiet cathedrals full of belly silks. I taste a sulking crow in the season. I devour many mediocre specimens of us, myself. Forecast. Not to be what one has been, but that I can only have been what I was, and so on. A banana in your fist in a climate of catastrophe. Seance of coffee sap and stone. The air is cold here, even in summertime. And it was summertime, it was cold. It's snowing ash. The best thing to have happened to my lifestyle is my lifestyle, which practically ate the moth as it landed on this page. Are there plenty of places for you to rest in the sun, moth? You choose me. You are the second best thing to have happened to my life. You choose me again and again. Defensible space 2. Maybe I will detox in the forest. Maybe I will detox when I'm dead. Even this carcinogen huff fogging the summer sun going mean jeans in the farm's hands, an offering of ipecac against the tomato harvest, as if that old root solution might wrench the ash cough out of the smoke through which the crow flies descended into and all about me. Everywhere, a burning root system. Everywhere, a root fire growing off the splayed tail feathers of a crow. An empty packet of regulator extracts, high THC, high deltas at the gravel pull-off, over the runoff chute to the mountain spring ditch, where we swam naked in the plastic water bottle company's water. They want to eat all the water. They said there will be nothing left but thirst, and that's fine. Fibers explode in the glass. The windshield meets the weed-dense wind. Ghost bent down over a down log, shiny bum, glowing bristly in the sun, in the sum of the tasty ditch, the tansy crotch. Oh, how the extracts hit. Oh, how. Some of this is unbearably what is, a year ago anymore, a balsam root pointing down the palm of our hand, seconds of 1 year in the palm of the other, a fist still held in a fist behind its own back. If a crow, then a smother-colored saint, iridescing like a tire fire, with one eye on the traffic light, one eye on a piece of tasty trash being the crux, waiting on the light like a crow might know in the ruined rhyme of us is the crux is. If a crow, then an ice cube constructed of black ice, then the mild or immense accomplishments of the radish bone depending on whether you look. The black ice is growing like tubers underground, sneaking up to the surface every morning to eat the sunlight, to iridesce. And if out one luxated window, one then looks to see at the side of the road a crow tangling with the text, so as to true the obligation, you must follow through with what you've begun. Thanks so much.
Incredible. Thank you, Ian. I think Sandra said it best in the chat. Mournful voice, which pierces my heart. Thank you for that reading, Ian. And congratulations to you and to everybody, all the readers today, for your Omnidawn books. I'm gonna open up the video to everybody here. Just a moment. All right, there it is. Thank you all. Show some love in the chat. We had Robin Caton first, Cyrus Console, Maw Shein Win, Ruth Ellen Kocher, David Koehn, and Ian Lockaby. Guys, thank you all for your readings today, and thanks to everybody who dialed in and who spent the time here with us today. If you don't have the books yet, click through and get them. I know the holidays just passed. If you're like me, you probably are feeling like there are a few gifts maybe you should have given that you didn't get around to. Books make great gifts, always. So I just want to point that out. And I want to give a shout out to Rusty, especially, and for those of you who are so inclined and able to help support her ongoing recovery efforts. I know, as somebody who has experienced being hit by a car, it is a long uphill battle, and it's expensive to get proper care. So if you're able to help Rusty, please do. I pasted the link into the chat. I know you can also help, of course, by buying Omnidawn's books as well, and that allows you to both help support the press and the authors. So please do that, and everybody take care as we enter a new week in this perilous new year. Take care of yourselves, and remember that that there's plenty of light out there, and you know where to find it. So thank you for spending the day with us, and take care of yourselves. Thank you all.